Hi, my name is Joe Taylor, and I'm the president of the group Cassidy's Couplet Kids. This is our activity theory presentation for the beat movement. Jalen Cox did James Baldwin, I did Amiri Baraka, Anthony Bell did Maya Angelou, and Nick Castain did Gregory Corso.
Hello, I'm Jalen Cox, and my poet is James Baldwin. I specifically talked about the Black experience in America and showing what James Baldwin did in order to make sure all people can understand what it means to be Black in America. He made his poems to display that people should be judged on the content of their character, not what ethnic background they have, what the color of their skin is, or what religion they believe in. Most, if not all, his work focused on racial and social issues that affect African Americans. James Baldwin was an essayist, novelist, and playwright. His works include movies such as I Am Not Your Negro, If Beale Street Could Talk, Where the Heart Is, and Go Tell It on the Mountain, which would eventually be turned into a song as well. Baldwin's passion and enthusiasm on the subject of race made him a prominent figure and important voice throughout the 1950s and 1960s. My first AT branch is on rules, which means if there are any individual or group norms, rules and roles governing the performance of this activity. The Black experience in America is the reason he wrote poems, movies, and books on this particular act. Baldwin made these poems as a response to the white world, the world of book reviewers, and the press. He made poems to show that all Americans are capable of doing anything they want, regardless of what they look like or believe in. James Baldwin was born with a natural writing ability, which he expressed through his poetic and literary writing, showing his focus on African American experience. My second activity theory branch is on object, which means why is this activity taking place? The reason for James Baldwin creating and writing poetry about slavery is to show how racism is growing throughout the nation. His response is to go to the heart of the issue which dominated the political and cultural life of mid-century America. Most of his work that expressed this moment was in The Fire Next Time and The Evidence of Things Not Seen. The reason for James Baldwin's poems was to address the racism against African Americans throughout society. My third activity theory branch is on outcome, and that is desired outcome from carrying out the activity. The desired outcome from James Baldwin was to show that people should accept who they are and not what society wants them to be. This is the goal that has driven and guided Baldwin as a Negro and as an African American. The issue was said in his works, such as Notes of a Narrative Son, The Fire Next Time, and Go Tell It on the Mountain, as well as Amen Corner. Also, the desired outcome for James Baldwin's poems was to show that people should be judged by the content of the other character, not because of one's race, ethnicity, or religion. Lastly, James Baldwin used his platform in order to spread awareness for what was going on. He tried to open the eyes of those that were blind in the sense of racism.
Hi, my name is Joe Taylor, and I researched Amiri Baraka. The first activity theory branch I focused on was tools. This branch focuses on the tools a person uses to perform a certain action. Baraka, who was born Leroy Jones in a village in New Jersey, was one of the most important poets in the beat movement, and as like so many others in the beat movement, he lived in a bohemian village. Baraka lived a bohemian lifestyle and carried that with him when he moved to Harlem, where his writing and poetry became important catalysts to the Black Power movement. Baraka was able to promote his writing through a newspaper called the Negro Digest, as it was one of the main tools Baraka used to gain notoriety as an influential African American poet. Amiri Baraka used the Negro Digest as a tool to become a predominant figure in the Black Power movement, to promote his poems, and to expose white racism. The second activity theory branch I focused on was subject. Subject focuses on the people or group that is the subject of the action that is taking place. I believe that the entire black community is the subject of Baraka's writing. Specifically, Baraka talks about the struggle of the black community in his work. Baraka's writing is increasingly relevant in our society today because of how it touches on similar issues that we all, as the human race, are dealing with. Similar to today's world, Baraka was protesting racism and injustices against the African American community through his poems. Poems such as Black Dada Nihilismus, as seen in the block quote here, touch on the issues of white oppression and black people fighting for equality. The disparity between his poems and the riots today is that Baraka is peacefully attempting to make a change with the power of his words instead of using violence. Baraka also promotes the beauty of African American art, as his poems are an example of beautiful African American art themselves. They go over the issue of how white art can be viewed as more beautiful than black art, and how this is untrue and all art should be viewed and criticized based on merit and not the skin color of its creator. The struggle of the entire black community was depicted in Baraka's poems because of how they spoke on racism, the Black Power movement, and the need for black art to be recognized as being just as culturally significant as white art. The third activity theory branch I focused on was outcome. This activity theory branch focuses on the outcome of the action that was performed. I believe that the desired outcome for Baraka's work was to advocate for and ultimately help African Americans reach racial equality in America. His work focused on national oppression. Baraka stressed the importance of the black community coming together as one in order to gain equality, as described in the poem titled SOS, as seen in the block quote below. He is calling to all black people to join together to fight the evil of racism in America. Baraka also wanted to help with the recognition of black art as equal as well. Baraka ultimately got a conversation going through his poems, and that is why he was one of the biggest figures in the Black Power movement. The outcome Amiri Baraka desired to come out of his work was a conversation to be started about racism in America, the recognition of black art as equal, and ultimately racial equality for all African Americans.
Hello, my name is Anthony Bell, and I conducted my research on the poet Maya Angelou. My first activity theory theme I focused on was subject. Maya Angelou was a popular African American poet, singer, memoirist, and civil rights activist. She was born in St. Louis, Missouri, and after her parents died, she moved to Arkansas to live with her grandparents and little brother. She was best known for her 1969 memoir, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which made history, becoming the first nonfiction bestseller by an African American woman. Maya Angelou was a poet, singer, memoirist, and civil rights activist that used her work to express her life as an African American woman in America. The second activity theory theme I did was community. Sharon A. Barnwell said, Black women's autobiography is the occasion for the viewing individual in relation to those others with whom she shares emotional, philosophical, and spiritual affinities, as well as political realities. As such, Caged Birds opening produces an intersubjectivity that is black, female, and in relation to the black community. As a black woman, Maya Angelou could relate to this. She created, she innovated, and she made her voice heard. She inspired people all around the world, but primarily represented and stood with the African American community. My third activity theory theme is division of labor. Angela was a strong voice in the civil rights scene. She fought for the rights of African Americans and was a role model for everyone. She worked with Malcolm X, and when he was assassinated, she decided to work alongside the famous Martin Luther King. She helped organize the Poor People's March when King wanted to help those struggling in Memphis. She made her voice so impactful that our world wouldn't be the same today without her.
Hello, my name is Nick Castain, and the poet I researched was Gregory Corso. The first AT branch I focused on was tools. Gregory Corso had many tools he used to create poetry. One of Corso's most unique tools was his time in jail. Corso spent 3 years in jail at Clinton Prison. Due to this, he had a very different perspective than many of the poets in his age. Gregory Corso has always had a skill for writing and a love for the English language since he was very young. Due to this, he was very articulate, able to express himself, and cater to the common people very effectively. The style of Corso's poems were very unique. He had a very conversational style of writing. This was much easier and more enjoyable for people to read and cater to larger audiences. My second AT branch was the rules. Gregory Corso has a very unique outlook on rules. Growing up, Corso was a constant runaway, lived in and out of foster homes until he was 11, and even went to juvenile institution. To say the least, Corso lived a life free of rules. This all changed when he was forced to do time in Clinton Prison. For 3 years of his life, he had to live under very strict rules and guidelines. This showed Corso the two extreme sides of rules in his life. The third AT branch is community. Corso grew up in a somewhat problematic community. Corso lived in an orphanage and multiple foster homes until he was 11, when his father remarried and decided to retake custody of him. He became a constant runaway and began getting in trouble and even served time at juvenile institution. When he turned 17, he had to spend 3 years in Clinton Prison. When he was finally released, he moved to San Francisco, where he resided for the rest of his life. Corso has been in many different communities. Due to all of the hardships he has gone through in his life, he has become one of the most youngest and most influential poets in the beat movement.
So that'll conclude our presentation on the beat movement. The next several slides are each individual poet's works cited list, all the sources that everybody used to do their individual poet. And yeah, that's it. Thank you. Have a good summer, everybody. Hi, my name is Joe Taylor, and I'm the president of the group Cassidy's Couplet Kids. This is our activity theory presentation for